Good morning, folks. We're back at this Sansui 9090 dB. If you recall, we left off having replaced capacitors on the filter board and cleaning the controls. Same with the tone control board. And I left this hang because I went back a day later and resprayed everything. I mentioned in the last video that Mr. Carlson, Paul Carlson of Mr. Carlson's lab, suggested doing that, spraying once, waiting 24 hours, and spraying again to remove any crud that may have been loosened by the initial application. So I've been going with that theory. I had a question about some of the chemicals I use. Now, when I'm spraying out potentiometers, the only thing I will use is deoxit fader F5. I have heard anecdotally that other cleaners can cause problems in pots. Some people said that D5, deoxit D5, can cause problems in pots. I haven't experienced it myself, but you can't get these anymore. So I always err on the side of caution, and this is the only thing I will use. Now, one thing I want to point out is I bought this can maybe 8 years ago, 10 years ago. You don't need a lot of it. I've heard people on audio forums going, yeah, I sprayed a whole can of deoxit and this still doesn't work right. Folks, if a couple of applications don't fix your problem, your pot is probably simply worn out. Because remember, this is just a wiper that wipes a piece of metal across a carbon track, and it is prone to wear after a certain number of years. So a little goes a long way. There's no need to use a lot. I ordered another can of this, even though I probably got a few years left here, because I found a good deal on a F5 and D5 bundle. So I use this a lot. For cleaning switches, I came across some a good price on some of these MG chemicals. These are good contact cleaners. This says control cleaner. I'm not spraying it in any pots, but I feel fine using it on metallic switches like this one here. I got these because MG Chemicals are good products, and I got a good deal on these at the last brick and mortar parts house in this area of the state that I'm aware of. These will both leave residue. Unless the cleaner says it is a zero or no residue product, it will leave something behind. Usually this one, this polyphenol ether, I believe is the residue it leaves behind, some kind of lubricant or protectant. Unless your can specifically says no residue or zero residue, you can be sure it's going to leave something behind. I also use D5. I use D100 that I have in the needle applicator. Now, I believe the difference is this is the contact protector. It doesn't have any solvent in it. I like this applicator because you can get into tight places. I also found a bag of these at work. Now, these are probably 20-some years old and came for a project. We found them when we were doing a cleanup. And that's probably part of why I was feeling badly. I changed my diet, cut out almost all meat, and at the same time we're moving just heavy furniture objects. I'm walking 7 to 10 miles a day and usually carrying something while doing it. I've been losing weight, and I don't think the beans and rice and nuts and other things I had added to my diet were making up for my protein use. So I went back, I've been eating more meat, getting plenty of rest. I feel 1,000% better. But anyway, I found these tips for these syringes are flat, pretty good bore, so I can force some contact cleaner into places I can't get with a can. I've got all kinds of other chemicals, but those are the ones I use most often. This is another can of MG Chemical I got. This is a contact cleaner. They make good products. Everybody talks Keg like it's the holy grail, and they do make good stuff, don't get me wrong. But they are not the only game in town. I understand our Canadian neighbors and friends use MG Chemicals because they get a better deal on these. I don't know if there's a tariff on the Keg products up there, but this is all good stuff. You just have to be careful what you spray. It's all pretty much application specific. Read the labels, read online forums, gain whatever information you can, and then you can make an informed choice of what to spray where. But as I said, I'm not taking any chances with pots because they don't make these anymore. So today we are going to get into the Dolby board here. And the switchboard on top of it, I don't recall what that is off the top of my head. We'll look at the manual and determine that. But these are going to come out. The Dolby board. There's been a lot of information written about this, and the problem is all the signals go through this board. And this is, if you hadn't seen my previous video, I explained that this was the first, I believe, if not close to the first, double-sided board that Sansui manufactured. Now, all the rest of these boards and all the rest of their products are what were called single-sided boards, which is to say there's only traces on one side of the board. This has traces on both sides of the board, and it is necessary to have through holes through the board to bring signal up from the bottom of the board to the top of the board. And therein is what lies the problem with this board, and that is that the through holes deteriorate for some reason, and what the cure is to suck the old solder out of the through holes, take some component lead, put it through the hole, and solder it in. Now, when I say component lead, we're talking about clipped off leads from resistors, capacitors. After you solder them in, you cut off the excess. I keep them around for just these kinds of projects. So we're going to start disassembling this. It's going to take removing these screws here. This is just like the Sansui AU717, which I have a lot of experience with. Take the two screws out and this just pulls out. So that would allow us to get back to this board. I don't know if we're going to have to take it out or not, but I know we're going to have to take out these guys here. And also we have, I believe that's the mic board, so we're going to be going through that as well. And we also have the regulator board and the relay to change out. And that'll take us through the majority of this unit. And after that, we're going to test every single function on here before it goes back to the owner, because this came from out of state and it's not going to return. We have to make sure that everything is right. We have to burn it in, and then once I'm satisfied that all functions work and nothing's going to fail, only then will I send it back to the owner. Okay, so here's our Dolby board. I've got it exposed, turned over, necessitated unsoldering all these ribbon connectors. Getting them back in is going to be a lot less fun than unsoldering them, but I don't think it's going to be too bad because we can do just a few at a time, and that makes life a whole lot easier. Trying to feed all of these in at once would be a recipe for a nightmare. But the good news is apparently somebody has repinned this board already. Now, I could tell someone had worked on it previously because there are some Sharpie markings on the board. So somebody else has been in here, and from all the work I've seen previously, they did a pretty good job. So whoever this was serviced by has my respect. They appear to have done very good work. Matching outputs. I didn't see any kludged in components. So that saves quite a bit of labor on this, I'm happy to report. But while we're in here, all the electrolytics are going to be changed out. Any known bad actor transistors will be changed out as well. And we'll clean all the wafers on this switch while we're in here. So it was definitely worth taking apart. It had to come apart. It allows us to clean all these pots here. These are probably never used. This is for the Dolby system. Dolby FM was pretty much stillborn in the US. It came out, and I don't think it was ever really implemented. If it was only a few stations. So anyway, the big problem is all the signals go through this board, so you have to repin the entire thing. Now I'm going to examine it because I have read that there are 64 through holes that have to be repinned on this. I want to make sure all of them were done. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but we'll go through here. As we're changing the capacitors out, we should be able to tell if all the nearby points have been repinned, but evidence suggests that they have been. So that's a good thing. Okay, so as I'm going through this, recapping it, I found one that didn't look like it had been repaired, and that would be this through hole right here. However, having unsoldered it, I did find that there had been a wire placed in there. Now, normal state of affairs is during wave soldering, these holes get filled in with solder, and that seems to be what fails. The holes are supposed to be plated through, and I have to assume they are. But there was a wire in here, so I'm going to put another clip lead in there. And as I said, I've been saving these as I've been replacing components. So what I do is I make a bend in it so it doesn't fall all the way through. And I place it in the hole. And I solder it on this side and then the other side. I'm going to stick my big head in here with the visor. So give me just a moment. Okay, so we have it soldered on that side. Solder looks good. Now the other side, same thing. And then we will clip off the excess, making sure none of the clip leads fall into the unit. It's kind of like surgery when you count the sponges to make sure you didn't leave any in the patient. Okay. Okay, so now we have done the through hole. Like I said, this had already been done. I just didn't see the end protruding out of here. Let me see, we're not even in the frame. Here we go. I didn't see the end protruding out of here, so I wanted to make sure that we had a good connection. I only want to do this once because remember we had to unsolder all these ribbon connectors, and I don't want to have to do that more than once. Okay, so I've got this girl back together here, and I tested it out, and basic functions work. I'm going to have to go through everything, but it does come out of protection. It does put out plenty of signal. Let's see, we are getting about 120, 122, 130. There's always going to be a little bit of imbalance. It's inaudible, but it has to do with volume controls, parts tolerances, yada yada yada. Anyhow, we have signal on both channels. We changed out quite a few capacitors, as you can see here, and all the none of the transistors, and there weren't many on the Dolby board or on the Hit Parade, so they stayed. Cleaned all switches and pots. We're coming to a close here fairly soon. I still have to get the relay, and I got to check the soldering. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. I'm going to move the camera, but the relay board here, these resistors are known to get pretty warm and occasionally unsolder themselves. We're going to have to go through the whole board. A lot of caps to change there. We're going to get a new relay and drop that in. But like I said, it looks like we're getting closer to the finish line here. I do have a funny story I got to tell you though before I sign this video off. My laser pointer, which somebody asked me about, the laser pointer is great for shining it through a circuit board so you can tell which one of these pads unsoldered, because it's not always that obvious. So my laser pointer was giving me a hard time, and I decided to buy this guy. I found it on Amazon. It was inexpensive. It said it was stupidly bright, and oh my God, were they ever right. This thing is so bright that I can stand outside at night, shine up to in the sky, and it shoots a visible beam for hundreds and hundreds of feet. I've aimed at every tree as far as I can, and I could see the dot. And my fear is I can't use this, because if I were to accidentally look in the end of this, I think it would cause damage, because this thing is really, really, really bright. The camera's not going to show you because it's going to try and you really have to see this to believe what I'm talking about. Anyway, it's fun to impress your friends. I may not sign this video off yet, so I'm just going to stop it here, look at a few more things, and if I am going to stop it, I will conclude it. Yeah, there was one more thing I wanted to do. I wanted to do this mic board. Just got to replace some caps. This transistor is on the hit parade, so it's going to get changed. This is a 2SC1313. Will be replaced with a KSC 1845. I got to tell you a funny story, because this reminded me of it. I have a friend in Miami that asked me to redo a Marantz 2230 for him, and got it done, checked everything out, sounded good, gave it back to him. He said it sounded good, but the headphones were only working on one channel. I thought that was kind of odd, because the headphones come right off the output. There's just a few resistors in there. And he brought it over here to me, plugged a set of headphones in, sounded fine. Couldn't find anything else wrong. Sent it back home with him. He calls me up, tells me the same thing. He's only got headphones on one channel. He's tried 2 different sets of headphones. I'm kind of at a loss, but fortunately, he's a pretty smart guy and he figured it out for himself. And the problem was that he had bought a wooden case for it. And I don't know where he got the screws he used, but the screws were too long and they were going up into the case and shorting out one side of the headphone jack. He took it out of the case when he brought it to me, which is why I never got to see the problem. Fortunately, like I said, he's a smart guy and figured it out for himself. But it just goes to show you there's all kinds of things that can happen. So we're going to redo this board, and then I will turn the camera back on, we'll talk briefly, and I will sign this video off. Okay, so I'm going to be unable to finish this board because I want to replace these low leakage electrolytics with some film capacitors, but the only ones I have are the proper value are these, which have leads that are too short, because they had, if you could see this, they had bent these leads over, so I need to be able to make that fit, and this simply doesn't have enough lead length for that. So what I'm going to do is, I already have the order placed. When you order capacitors, film caps like this, if you get them on cut tape for machine insertion like these are, they come on longer leads. So I ordered some of those, and they should be here with the relay and a few other parts that I needed. So I'm not going to be able to finish this today, but I did change out all the other electrolytics, and I replaced the transistor, noting this time that I put it in correctly because these are opposite of what was in there. So anyhow, it's time for me to sign this one off and get it uploaded. As always, I thank everyone for watching, and I really appreciate all the well wishes I was given because I wasn't feeling well. The outpouring was just amazing, and I want to thank each and every one of you. Anyhow, I hope you all have a great day. Thanks for watching, and as always, I like giving back to the community that has given me so much. Thanks a lot, folks.